I am thrilled to welcome a new guest to the show today. Billy Galewood is with us. So, welcome, Billy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And also, I'm so happy to have my co host with me today. Bill Aho is with us also. So, Bill and Billy are in the studio with us. I'll introduce Billy, artist, comedian, actor, singer, song juggler, like that one, improv performer, and self proclaimed original gangster of Cleveland. And we're going to get to talk about Cleveland today. These are the assorted talents of Billy Galewood. He's been performing in musical theater since the age of 9. And at 18, he was studying theater at the American Musical and Dramatic Academy in New York City, supporting himself as street performer, party clown, incorporating juggling, magic, face balancing, okay, and fire breathing. Woohoo! He's formally known as Bushwalla and has a show that's a unique blend of comedy, improv, hip hop, folk, and funk with a soul deeply rooted in authenticity and optimism. His songs have been everywhere. He's quite famous in San Diego. You might have seen him on the TBS show Celebrity Show Off. He's also been in a movie called Connected. He's just an all round entertaining guy. And I'm so pleased that we get to have him on the show today. So let me start off with a question
Happy
for
to be
you,
here.
Billy. Good. Yeah. Thank you very much. So Wikipedia thinks you grew up in Cleveland, which you also admit to in your bio. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about your early years and influences that you think caused you to create such broad interests and talents?
Oh, for sure. No problem. And I'd like to thank my mom for writing that bio. None of that actually happened. That was all just a wish list for my mom.
I wish
um,
my son had done
yeah.
this, but
I wish my son. That's funny. She'll like that one. Yeah. Original Gangster of Cleveland is just. I guess I should start there because that's. I feel like that's the elephant in the room. You could actually write me a check paid at the order of the Original Gangster of Cleveland, and it's kind of funny because when I go to the bank and I bring one of those checks in, they go, "What do you do for a living?" And I say, "I rob people." Uh, that's. And then they look at me funny and they don't want to give me my money. No,
I get
no.
nervous. Yeah.
That's actually my when you write music, you when you sign up for ASCAP, which is how you sort of keep track of some of your funds, you have to come up with a fictitious business name so they can pay you two different ways. And they call you at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I go, Original Gangster of Cleveland. Click, and then I didn't realize I was going to have to set up a bank account, and also so
Oh,
my bank card literally says the Original Gangster of Cleveland on it. So it's just
oops.
a little perk that I kind of like. But yeah, yeah, I was born and raised in a suburb of Cleveland, about uh, 15 minutes outside of Cleveland, called Bedford Heights, Ohio.
Oh, mhm.
And I started performing at 9 years old in a youth theater company called Kids on Broadway. My third and fifth grade teacher were the same person, which was really fortunate because I loved her. Her name was Ruth Kodola, and she ran this theater company. And she tried to get me in the third grade because I had a big personality and a massive head of hair. And it was always like they would do Gilbert and Sullivan productions, and they would want you to grow your hair. So I was perfect for the chorus guy. And they got me. So she convinced my mom the summer of my fifth grade year, and I walked into Bedford High School, which was where the theater took place. I was only in the fifth grade at the time, but and I saw two things happen. I saw an improv, and I
Mm.
saw a kid by the name of Steve Brockway sing soprano, and he was older than I was, and it was moving. And it was the first time
Oh.
I'd ever been moved by theater, which was the first day I walked into a theater. And I was hooked. I was hooked. That's all I did. That's all I did. I didn't take football. I mean, my dad was a mechanic and like worked out, and he was like state champion in judo. And I took like ballet class and tap. So yeah, but he was super supportive. But I was hooked. I've always loved to make my parents laugh, to
Mm.
entertain, to just bring joy through being silly and not taking life so seriously. And I found that in theater, especially improv at the beginning, it just really filled it filled up my cup, you know. So and then I stayed in that theater company all through um all through my schooling. But a really unique thing happened at the age of 12, and that was I got to audition for the Cleveland Opera,
Oh,
and they were doing a production of La Boheme,
oh,
and I had now been in theater a few years. I was about 12 at the time, and I auditioned, and the first opera I auditioned, I didn't get, but I got the second one. I got in La Boheme, and that was my first entry into professional performing.
mm-hmm.
And we rehearsed downtown Cleveland. We performed at the Palace Theater. Cleveland Opera at the time was the third or fourth largest opera company in the country,
Yeah.
and there were people from the Met performing. And I'll never forget in a rehearsal where at the end, in La Boheme is where the musical Rent was based on. West Side Story was based on La Boheme. It's that classic story of the two loves that just, loves that just can't be. And that was the second time I was moved to tears watching in a rehearsal, and everybody's singing in Italian, and I don't know what anybody's saying, but it made me cry. It was so beautiful, and to see the passion and the performance. And then I got up and walked out, and I had lunch, and
Uh,
I was like,
really? This is a
you
weird
could
thing. Yeah.
you could do this. You could through theater, I was able to travel to China, or the moon, or
Mhm.
underground, through improv and through play and performance. I was able to go to all these places and do all these things and learn all these skills just by doing what I liked and never really having to leave my hometown.
Mhm.
So, and then from there, yeah, I really took advantage of performing in Ohio. I was an announcer for SeaWorld and for the local theme parks, and I announced for the WNBA while I was there. I was a on-court announcer for your Cleveland Rockers.
Nice.
Here they
Excellent.
come. Give it up for them. And then at the age of 19, headed east to New York City. So that was my time in Cleveland. Yeah.
It is funny as I'm listening to you talk. I don't know what it is about improv, but there's something absolutely hysterical about it. I don't think I've ever laughed as hard except doing improv. There's something
Hmm.
just so joyous about, as you say, going to the moon just, in a few
Hmm.
sentences, and that freedom, right? To just do all kinds of
Yeah.
crazy, hilarious things. There's, for a kid, that just must be
Yeah.
yeah, amazing.
It's really interesting. I think improv represents what actually happens in real life. We don't know what we're going to say. We walk into a coffee shop, and you say, "Hey," and then they say, "Hey, I'll take a coffee." It's all this yes and, just like
Mhm,
in
mhm,
improv. And I think what makes it so funny is, say you're in that coffee shop and you know the barista and he busts a joke. Well, it just came from nowhere. And you were
mhm,
probably thinking the same thing too, or maybe you weren't. And I think improv is like that. I mean, that's what stand-up comedy wants to be. It wants to
mm,
present itself as something that's, oh yeah, I'm just standing up here thinking about stuff, when it's been finely tuned. But when you go
mhm,
to an improv show, you really know it's coming. It's just like real life. It's coming from nowhere. I mean, there's some rules to follow, but just like real life, there's a few rules to follow if you want to have a successful conversation with somebody. So, yeah, I love it.
yeah,
It really helps to have the creative mind and the imagination too, because a lot of people don't have those in abundance, where some people have
Mhm.
are full of it, and people that are creative and they have an imagination, they appreciate it so much even more than just a regular person as far as when it comes out, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see who really appreciates it, who some people can't even watch it because it's too uncomfortable.
mhm,
Because you're always at the edge of disaster. That's the beauty of it. Just like
right.
real life, you're always at the edge of disaster, but we somehow get the car home. So you're just trying to get the car home in improv. But yeah, I really do find people of all shapes and sizes, and from all parts of the earth that love comedy. Like we just love to laugh. And I
Mhm.
think it just goes back to joy. And even if you can diagnose it or you can't, you're just like to be moved. some people listen to music and they just like it. It does nothing to the lyrics, do nothing. The thing it's just the joy of hearing those sounds. So there's so many different ways to interpret. And I think comedy and improv and music, just basically the title of your podcast is a beautiful thing to fill your life with.
Well, thank God for comedians too. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and it's like, that's one thing the United States is really good at is comedians. And thank God, because in our country, we need them.
For sure. And and living on the West Coast, you really get to, if you're in that world, there's so many of them. And you can go see, if you're in LA, if you're in San Diego, you could see comedy every night. And really, there's everything from top acts to, guys and gals out there just trying to grind at the game, and performing comedy. Performing comedy more than improv is probably the most, stand-up comedy, meaning is the most humbling thing a person can do. I know it's on the top list of scariest jobs in the world, and really it's just standing there and being vulnerable and being okay with being bad or having a bad night. Really being okay with being a bad artist. I mean, the more you can get comfortable with that. What Dave Chappelle famously said one time, "You can boo me, I get paid for the effort." And I always thought that was a funny. he said that on something, not to just to quote Dave on that one, but it is true. You get so you got to be okay with just being not okay.
I should mention that I became aware of Billy because Bill and I went to a show that was in honor of Java Joe's, and Billy was the MC for that. And wow, did you do a great job with that?
Hey, thanks.
Really great job. I was so impressed. And so, I was determined at that point to get you to come on the show. And it's taken me a while, but
that's funny.
It finally was successful. But just to talk about that a little bit, one thing that I admired so much about what you did that night, I mean, I guess I would call it a performance, but there was so much happening, and it wasn't scripted down to the minute. So you were really busy having to cope with a lot of things. There were a lot of microphones on the stage. I mean, there were just so many things happening.
Yeah.
But you just kept your cool through it all, which I was so impressed with. So was that a good night for you? Or
it was a great night. It was a great night. You have to like, I think, and I appreciate that, because that means I'm doing my job, especially as a host. I get asked to host a lot. The reason is it's just being okay with just whatever's thrown at you. And that night in particular, there was more mics on the stage for singers than I'd ever seen in my life. I go, there's 14 mics. It was weird. It was a wall of microphone. And the first thing I thought of was, uh-oh. And there was also this thing in the audience where the sound man couldn't turn it would feed back if he gave it too much. And so there's decisions of, like, how much do I need a mic? What do I do off mic? And then as the host, you automatically become the show wrangler. You're wrangling people. You're not just, so I got to just trust myself and trust that everything's not going to be funny, but keep the energy right and keep the action going, and acknowledge the moment, acknowledge the people, acknowledge myself, and be light, be loose, and be light. I even proposed to my now fiance that night. I don't know if you remember. I got down on my knee and I'm talking about my girlfriend at the time, Savannah, and I get down on my knee, and and she's just like, what is happening right now?
She was right in front of me. Yeah.
Right. She told me she talked to you, right. And she thought I was going to propose, and in her head, she goes, I'm going to say yes, but we're definitely going to have to talk about it later. And
with conditions.
And with a lot of conditions and time. And I just tied my shoes. And then funny enough, in October I proposed to her at Sunset
Mhm.
Cliffs, so in San Diego. So, we are now engaged for real. But yeah, but back to what you were saying. It's really you have to be if you want to host, you really
Mm,
have to adapt. Even if you're a comic and you're on stage for 10 minutes, that's your 10 minutes. But when you're a host, you're on everybody else's time.
mm,
If you go over, you're messing somebody else's time up. If you're a poor representation of the show, you're going to be a groan every time the thing ends. And lastly is it's not about you.
mm,
It's not about you as a host. It's about the show. And I think that's like one of the things that I always think when I'm in any type of production, whether it's just myself or there's 100 people. I'm working on a production right now with 100 people in it, and I just always tell myself, what's best for the show? What's
mm.
best for the show? I'll go on stage again another day. I don't have to do anything.
Mm.
What's best for the show? So and I appreciate you. Appreciate those comments.
One of the
Yeah,
things about I'm sorry, Jennifer. One thing
no,
about
no, go ahead.
Jabba Joe, we've had a lot of Jabba Joe stories on our podcast. We've had
I'm sure.
Lisa Sanders and Jeff Berkeley and just a lot of people, and he's
Yeah.
come up quite a bit. And I know you've performed at a lot of his places over the years. I mean, I know I've
Yeah.
seen you at the Old Town Jabba Joe's, and I've
Yep.
seen you in the Adams Street Jabba Joe's, where
Hmm.
you've done your own sets. And
Yeah.
he's such a great person for bringing so many San Diegoans or transplanted San Diegoans
Hmm.
up in the business and promoted people. I mean, he's just an amazing guy, and
Oh,
we just have to thank him again here with you, because I know that's one of the reasons you were posting that Java Joe tribute was
yeah.
because of all the things he's done for you and everybody else.
Java is I agree with you. I agree with you. And I've known Java Joe for 22 years. When I moved out here, uh it was Steve Poltz doing Thursday nights at Java Joe's, and Gregory Page doing Thursday nights at Java Joe's, and Jason Mraz doing Thursday nights. And then I got the Thursday night spot. And it was and 9 people came. And
And
I
this is
invited everybody on stage and they
and this
fit.
is more the musical time, or was this the comedy time, or kind of a
Well,
both?
it's funny. It was both. So Java gave me my first actual show, and it wasn't even called Billy. It wasn't called Bushwalla. It was called Mr. Funny Man. And I opened up for Jason Mraz, who's a dear friend of mine, and he gave me a 30 minutes too. In retrospect, I'm like, that's a long
Yeah,
time
I
for my
agree.
very first. And
Thank
you
you. Yeah.
exactly. Thanks. And it was a full and I was the opener, so it was like a full house. And I was bringing people on stage, and I have a clowning background. I come from in the bio it said like face balancing, and which kind of sounds weird. I balance
Does.
things on my face, juggle, do that kind of
Okay.
stuff. So the show was juggling, and then I do a song, but I didn't have a full song, so I would sing a chorus of a song and then put the guitar out. It was just a show that I really put together for that night. And I thank Java Joe for that. And that experience on Bacon Street in OB, when there was a 1 year period when I first got here, and I I mean I remember sitting in the back of Java Joe's while somebody was on stage, could have been Berkeley Hart or Gregory Page or Jason or whoever it might be, and I'm in the crowd and I'm writing poetry, hoping that girls would ask me what I was writing, and so I can go, I'm writing poetry. I mean, just so many classic nights of like I even lived there. I dated the bartender, and she lived in the back, and so I lived there for 3 months, and I think I performed at 7 Java Joes.
Wow.
I had an improv comedy show called Zero to Billy. I did there for 28 weeks in a row on the Adams Avenue
Mm-hmm.
location. I performed at Java Joe's at bars, at surf shops, Java Joe's that have popped up for one time at yoga studios. I did one the other day. We did a Java Joe's presents from somebody's backyard, and
Oh,
he's just he's just a dear old friend, and that always it's always fun to do shows with Java and to make him laugh, and it's wild. We're still doing it. There's not a lot of the guys I grew up with that were booking shows and running nights aren't doing it anymore, or aren't with us anymore. So Java is a bit of a treasure in that regard. So
Yeah, a really icon for San Diego music scene. Yeah, so
absolutely.
let's talk a little bit about San Diego because you're in San Diego now and have been for a while. So
Hmm.
yeah, I'm always curious to ask people like, how is San Diego working out for you as a place to be a performer?
It's interesting because what I consider myself is bi-coastal. I live in both LA and San Diego. That's that's my joke, and I've done that for 23 years. For 23 years, from the first 6 months I got here, um, I started going to San Diego, reunited with some old friends, and I drove to San Diego once a week. I still, and I've lived in San Diego 10 years, 10 or 12 years. I've lived in LA. As of right now, I have residence at both places,
Oh
which is
yeah,
really fun.
you really are
Um,
bi-coastal.
yeah, I'm bi-coastal. So how's and the cool thing is San Diego is something that saved my life in the way that San Diego is where I really found a home. San Diego is where I really found a neighborhood community that would show up, people that would, we'd go to the beach and then go do a show. San Diego is where I've found my farmers, where I found my chefs, and just a wonderful warmth in the music community versus LA, which I found those things in a different way. Where I found my jazz and funk musicians and some of my brothers and sisters for life, and I got to play on the Sunset Strip and do all those things. But I always, and my advice to anybody that lives in LA is leave a
Mm.
lot. And so I love both places. And how San Diego's affected me is it just has always given me a stage and a
Oh.
couch or a home or love, or so I just adore San Diego. And but it's always been funny because being this ping pong of resident, um I always felt that one day I will settle down, and that is my goal to really settle my roots in San Diego and ride
Oh.
this one out.
Oh, I was gonna see.
Here,
We'll have to see who wins, but I guess you already know.
yeah, yeah, for sure, for
Oh,
sure. But it is
okay.
great to have offices in both places where I work and
Mhm.
edit and make music, and it's just, and I hang my hat in 2 nights here, 3 nights there. My fiance lives in San Diego as well. A lot of my work is there, so um, yeah, I just go back and forth.
There's a lot happening in Los Angeles. I've been getting a little bit more aware of the scene up there, and
Hmm.
it's busy. There are a lot of people, probably more than San Diego, and just a lot of infrastructure, a lot of
Hmm.
things going on. But I do wonder if San Diego's a little bit friendlier, maybe because maybe it's just the town. I mean, San Diego's such a friendly
Well,
town.
it is. It is. It's just friendlier. It's. I go to the coffee shop. I don't just know the person that's behind the bar at the coffee shop. I know everybody in the coffee shop.
Hmm.
And they're the same people that have been going to this coffee shop for years. You said Lisa Sanders earlier, and Berkeley Hart, and like those are those people that I continuously do shows with, or see, or hang out, or make music with. We went to a Gregory Page movie the other day for that he did for Jack Tempchin, and that's what I don't um have as much here on the when I walk down the street. I know one guy at the coffee shop when I'm in LA. I really have my wits about me. You never know what you're gonna get. It's a mixed bag of nuts. Um, it keeps you on your feet. Another thing about San Diego is that it's really beautiful,
Yeah.
and LA it has its beautiful pockets,
It has a
but
lot of charm. I mean,
it's
it's of a certain
mhm,
ilk, right? But I think it
yeah.
has a lot of charm. Has a lot
But
of
you
history.
if you want somebody to drive in and visit you, good luck. If you live in LA, I've had people, like, if I've been in LA and they want to come visit me, they've asked me to drive back to San Diego so they can visit me. And I went, what? Like, you're in Arizona. What's the difference? You know, and they're like, no, 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 no. We're not doing LA.
Ah.
So, but yeah, but I think I got the best of both worlds, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As I say, I've been pretty impressed with everything that's going on in Los Angeles. It's a busy, happening place. But yeah,
Yeah.
we in San Diego, we're just so laid back. Yeah. It's a
It's
different
great.
culture.
It's great. My dream is to get my own a little mini farm out in maybe North County, and
Mhm.
that's my goal. It's my 5-year plan.
There's room out there. I mean,
For sure, for
yeah.
sure. I got to peel the Band-Aid, you know, and on a few things, but very soon I will be a 100% resident.
Excellent.
I'm about 65-40 San Diego right now. I'm
Okay.
barely in LA.
Maybe after you get married.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure.
All right. So tell us about Bushwalla. You have an entry in Wikipedia for Bushwalla.
Yes, Bushwalla is what I tell everybody that's about to have a baby, and they ask me, what should I name the kid? I say, try Bushwalla. And so far,
thanks for your input.
yeah, so far nobody's agreed with me. Bushwalla is it's funny, it's a nickname. And a lot of people thought it was my last name. And it was my nickname that became a stage name. When I was in high school, I had a big sound system in my car, and I listened to this rap group called the Ghetto Boys, and there was a guy in there named Bushwick Bill. So my name being Billy, and at the time I went by Bill, and so people started calling me Bushwick Bill or Bushwick Billy. They started calling me this rapper's name as a nickname, just my friends. So I moved to New York City. I go to college, and I go to orientation, and I hear Bushwick. I'm the last person in orientation, and I hear my name. I go, what? And it's a guy from my hometown.
Oh, wow.
So the name carried over, and immediately I was Bushwick to all these people here because he yelled it at orientation. And that's where I met my longtime friend, Jason Mraz. And we were in every class together in 1995 in New York City. And then the name Bushwick really stuck. And he was Baseldorf. So it was Bush and Baz, Bushwick and Baseldorf, rapping and living in one room with, you know, that was freezing. And yeah, I remember the first night of our college, it snowed inside our apartment. I'll never forget that. There was flurries coming in. New York was fun. We lived in a place called the Banana Bungalow. It was a hostel, and they housed us in a hostel. It was really interesting. And then that name stuck. And eventually, actually, Jason and I made a sort of an underground album of just for us right before he went off to make his first album, and you know the rest is history with him. We made this living room album, and he goes, you can't be Bushwick anymore. There's another rapper named Bushwick. And by the end of the night, we came up with Bushwalla.
Which is better. Which was way better.
Way better. Way better. Yeah. Yet very close to the band Dishwalla. So a lot of people would be like, I know you. You had that song. Yeah, tell me all your thoughts on God. And I was like, no, that wasn't
you would say no. You should say, then, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm doing it differently these days.
Yeah. I've changed. Yeah.
Check out my acoustic rap album. So Bushwalla stuck, and it was not the Bushwalla band. It was Bushwalla, and it was always Bushwalla and friends, Bushwalla and the Ill Stars of Funk, and however it may be Bushwalla. You know, it was always just this name that sort of kind of represented more than me. It kind of represented my community, because I was very fast to invite rappers and musicians and get my band up to a 10-piece band with all these hot cats from San Diego and LA that played with everybody, and I paid them $10 to play with me, but they had fun. And I'll never forget, I had a show, a Bushwalla show, and a guy came up to me and goes, "Hey man, I've been paying these guys for your band to pay with me, and it's costing me an arm and a leg. How do you do all these shows with them?" And it was just like, you got to make it fun, man. You got to make it worth their while, not just financially, but because I couldn't make it fun financially for them. But you know, having an improv based funk band, they're all playing like this, like, oh, what's coming
They're
next? You know?
terrified.
I turn around and go, "Give me some UFO music." They're like, "What in the heck is that?" But something would happen, you know. It's not supposed to be good. It's just supposed to happen. So that was my motto. And but that was the story of Bushwalla, and I performed under the name Bushwalla for 15 years.
Oh gosh, long
And
time.
all the music that I have out on Spotify or anything, if you look up Billy Galewood, you won't find my music there. You got to look under Bushwalla, and you'll find a few full-length albums and a bunch of EPs and YouTube Bushwalla, and there is a couple days of nonsense there to find. But then in 2015, I went to I did a 10-day silent meditation called Vipassana meditation, and I didn't talk for 10 days, and I meditated 10 hours a day. Hardest thing I ever done in my life, craziest thing I ever done in my life, but it gave me an opportunity to make a decision. Uh, and sometimes that's what you got to do, to just make one decision. And the decision was, instead of having a midlife crisis, I'm going to reinvent myself. And dropped the name Bushwalla, had a retirement show, had a retirement album, really made a thing of it. So it was a thing, raised a bunch of money to get the last album out, and then did one last show. And that was it.
End of
And then
Bushwalla.
end of Bushwalla. And then that's when I jumped into the comedy world and put the guitar down.
Why did comedy win that? What was the big change for you?
Or
was comedy always the winner?
Well, comedy was always the winner. I couldn't take anything too seriously. I mean, I couldn't get through a song without stopping 10 times. And I remember one time I went on stage and I didn't do a song for 20 minutes. I had an hour set and I didn't do a song for 20 minutes. And I was just talking and making people laugh and philosophizing or whatever. And I went, that's really fun. And I still write songs. I write a song a week. I'm in a song game where we write a song a week. I still perform with music. I still do comedy music and regular music. I just needed to step away. I needed to try something different, but I still wanted to perform, and I loved making people laugh. And I thought, what's the scariest thing I can do? And the scariest thing I can do was go do stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
It just scared the bejesus out of me. But I got laughs. Even if they were little laughs, I got laughs. That series of years of stage work or bombing. Well, I already did that on music. I bombed 1,000 times in music with songs that I wrote. And the crazy part about comedy to music is that if you write a bad song, people will still clap. If you say a great joke a little off, or you don't have the right crowd, you get zilch. You get flatline. And I was like, wow, if I could get comfortable with that, I should be able to get comfortable with life. And but so it was just a change, and I didn't pick up my guitar for a couple of years, and I didn't sing for a while, and I honestly lost my singing voice for a while. I remember sitting with a friend and playing a song, and I couldn't sing the song. It just was coming out flat. And I wasn't always the most perfect pitch guy, but it was always it was coming out really odd. And I couldn't. And he turned to me and he goes, "Are you tone deaf? No, what is going on?" And I got it was a good enough friend of mine, though. I was like, and I probably almost started crying, but I was like, and I sort of had to not teach myself how to sing, but teach myself how to love to sing again. And now at 48, I realize I just do stuff. I just do stuff. I perform, I sing, I edit videos and do documentary type stuff for people. I just do stuff. And you could call it, oh, you're an artist. I just do what I love to do and thank the heavens that I just keep getting opportunities to do it. You know, I retired 20, 30 years ago. I retired a long time. I just would say that. I'm like, I've been on summer vacation for 15, 20 years, you know, and luckily that my ability to create or manifest a situation where my bills are paid and my life is supported by art has been, and it's and even in this journey, in that journey of ending Bushwalla, I had to take jobs, driving in an after school program, driving kids around. I took jobs working at down the street, my buddy's factory, and just taking whatever. I was I went to Mraz's farm and I said, "Can you give me a job? I need to." And finally, you get to the point where you go, "Why don't you just go back on stage
Mm.
and do something?" And so it was a whole reinvention.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm to the point where if I do comedy, it makes sense. If I
Mm-hmm.
do music, it makes sense. If I do a clown show, it makes sense. If I go to farming, it makes sense. If I did, a video editing, because that's another passion of mine, is documentary type work, that makes sense too. And it really, the only person it really has to make sense to is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Who you having the conversation with? Yourself. This conversation that doesn't seem to stop. And you finally, I don't know, either stop listening to that person or you find an agreement. Yeah, it seems to be working out.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
I was thinking, it reminds me a little bit of Steve Martin. I think,
Oh,
that, yeah,
I have
he
his book
started,
right there. I'm looking at his book
yeah,
right now.
I can see, yeah, you're kind of soulmates in that way.
Oh,
He
for sure.
started out being a magician,
Yeah.
and then, I mean, those of us of a certain age have sort of
Mm-hmm.
watched his evolution, banjo playing, music, and writing, for
Yeah.
the New Yorker.
Yeah.
But I really like your line about it really only has to make sense to you, right? Because I think we have a
Yeah.
tendency to try and compartmentalize people. And that's just not, I just don't think it's appropriate for human beings. I mean, humans are
Mm-hmm.
so much more complicated than that. And
Oh,
and
yeah.
it definitely, for me, definitely makes sense. It's like, oh, Billy's
Mm-hmm.
doing comedy, Billy's doing, some
Yeah.
juggling. But for some of the physical stuff, tell me about that. Like, what was it like to first learn how to juggle and whatever this face, whatever thing is?
Yeah, I should have said balancing things on my face. Face balancing sounds like I'm taking faces and putting them on my face. Or I have like different personas and I'm balancing these different faces.
Yeah, right. I'm
Well,
balancing all my personalities.
yeah, it's like, yeah. Wait, here's one now.
I know, right.
Well, interesting, I think is um, I'm less physical now. I definitely I used to be much more of a physical performer, especially when I was in my clown years.
Mhm.
Um, because that was a question about like being a physical performer. Is it? Yeah, I spent a lot of time for 10 years when I at the end of Ohio and the beginning of California, I taught gymnastics. I don't
Oh,
I
wow.
don't I don't know gymnastics, but I was good with but I was good with kids.
Yeah,
Like I did magic and juggling, so like they loved it. So
right.
I found out that every gym, even if it's a competitive team a gym, they need one clown. They need
Uh-huh.
somebody that's not yelling at the kids to make them just laugh. Come in with pink hair and clown shit. I used to teach in clown pants, and they so through working with them, I learned how to flip and be more physical with my comedy. And with kids, they have no uh relax button. They will tell you exactly how you're doing at every moment. So I would teach an hour class. That was an hour of stand-up for me. I was
Uh-huh.
doing appropriate age stand-up. I was talking about stinky socks and doing the little like like squeezing their head, making a little noise. But like so there I started becoming more of a physical comic. And then in improv, and or if you do mime work, or if you're doing stage work, you have to be more expressionable. If you're doing musical theater and you're dancing, you have to do. I loved musical theater, so I was like West Side Story twice, Chorus Line twice, Fiddler on the Roof twice. I danced in all of those,
Wow.
and but I'm not a professional dancer. That's the cool thing about musical theater is you can kind of get away with a big smile goes a long way. Your kick looks a lot
jazz
higher
hands.
when you're Fosse, right? So, but now the cool thing about getting older is you start to know the right moments to go forward and the right moments to pull back. And you realize you don't have to express so much. You can contain a lot. So that's kind of the fun I'm having now, is that I still go what my fiance calls crazy Billy. She goes, "Oh, you were in Crazy Billy." It's when it's an I'm just fully expressed. Every arm's going every direction. But to bring it back down and to get a reaction out of the audience through your eyes or through a subtle movement or through just holding the moment. Yeah. So it's cool when you get to that place of you don't have to be, but my show used to be 96% bonkers and 4% me taking a drink of water, so, but I learned to, over the years, relax, but still use that physicality, to my benefit. But I did have sort of a nasty. I crashed on a bird scooter in July in Indiana, and that took my physical. I really had to work on my eye contact after that. So, yeah, don't drive those things. Don't ride those things. I don't even ride them on a helmet. I don't.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's all right.
That's a
I'm sorry. My head broke the fall. It was good.
Oh,
it was good. Yeah,
right.
yeah. Luckily,
Well, nothing important then.
Being a clown, did you have a clown name?
Yeah, I did. I started as Jinx the Clown, and then I even got an official. Let me show you something. I got an official. I don't know if you can see that. That's a balloon animal.
Oh,
dog.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
Right
it's
there.
a balloon animal.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
You can never go to prison with that on, though. I tell you, everybody's trying to pop it. That's I don't know.
I think you're protected from prison with that. No judge.
Yeah, they're like, you got it.
Nah,
just
jail.
go. Nobody puts Jinx in jail. But I actually was Jinx at first, and I did the full clown makeup and everything, and then I realized kids are afraid of clowns, and the parents wanted you to have the silly name, and the thing. Kids wanted their uncle over. And I'm an uncle 12 times. I'm the world's greatest uncle. That's like one of my things, and so I took the name away and I would show up as Billy, no face paint. And then I had a mentor would do the same thing. He was just Mr. Bean, and he took his he would just be no makeup, just a silly outfit. Still did the shoes. I got the size 1100s over there, and then the kids just would it would just so I went to so I lost my train of thought for a second. I went back to just being Billy, and hey, I'm the buddy dressed as wacky, and let me do these tricks for you. And the kids would be like, "Oh yeah, I know you. You look like my cousin." But you can't. You go to wipe your makeup off, and you look like a demon. You're like, "Oh, you want me to take it off?" And I got to change my voice to this. No, it's like Billy's here. Let's do it. Yeah, you guys ready to go? And if you're telling good jokes, we care. The kids didn't care.
Yeah, that's that's really interesting. It's almost like you've become more and more stripped down as you're going along.
Oh yeah. My last show, I will perform naked. Right? At the end of my life, I shall be totally naked, going, "This is really what it's about."
Right. This is it. You won't say a word. You'll just stand there.
I just stand there. Yeah.
We'll all be dying laughing, but.
Bring on the laughs. Bring on the laughs. Come on.
Boy, this show's really evolved.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, tell me about performing for adults versus performing for children.
Wow. If you asked me at different stages of my life, I would have had different answers for this. But I did do a clown show last year, and I've retired for a while. my clowning. So I only bring it out for special people, the whole show, you know. I still do a little magic in that was the cool thing about doing magic, is that whether they're adults or kids, who doesn't you can make it funny. You could
Yeah.
make it like, if I did a balloon animal trick for a kid or did a balloon animal trick on stage for an adult, adults think it's so ridiculous, where the kids are like, oh, that's cool. If I did a magic trick, and I would, you know, a friend of mine once said that my show is a birthday party for adults. It's a
Uh-huh.
kid's birthday party for adults. And so I guess really there was no difference, because it's the same kind of presence. It was the similar preparation. Um, you had to keep things with kids, you have to keep things moving.
Mm.
With adults, you can hold on awkward silences. You can stretch a moment more. But for kids, it's like you got to keep it rapid fire. And then it was 5 minutes of this, 5 minutes of that, 10 minutes of this, 10 minutes of that. And we got to go, and we're never stopping. Where, you know, with the adult stuff I do, you're just doing, you know, whatever that show is. I did, though, when I did the clown show last year, realize I don't have the same, um maybe it's just patience, that I did
Mm.
with kids that I don't know. You know, it's like,
Mhm.
I don't know you. But it was challenging, because nowadays every magic trick is on YouTube.
Oh.
And they've done, you know, they've seen people do the crazy feats with skateboards, and I'm like, hey, look at this 3-ball juggling act, and they're like, yeah, okay, my dad does that. And then uh and then I noticed I'd go to take a drink of water, and a kid would go, I know what you're doing, I know what you're doing. And I literally went, hydrating. You know, it was like, I mean, like, everybody knows what I'm doing right now. Try not to pay, it's hot. And I left there going, you know what? With adults, you know, you could say, hey, you know, the kids shows, not so much. So I
Mhm.
guess there's, you know, I think it's just depends on, each show is different. And you know, they all present their unique opportunities of understanding yourself a little bit better. Especially that kid show. I was like, I think I need a couple more years before I have one. Yeah.
That was one of the things that struck me about watching you uh, host the show for Java Joe's, was your willingness to let the moment go. And
Mm,
yeah, I think a lot of performers feel as though they have to dominate the time.
mm-mm.
And and in fact, that was it was so great, because it really showed how relaxed you were. I
Thanks.
don't, or at least it seemed as though you were pretty relaxed, pretty comfortable with being on
Yeah.
stage. This is going to happen. It's okay, folks. It's all, you know. And so it makes the audience relax too.
Yeah.
And I think
Well, you were
that,
there with all your friends too. I mean, it was like everybody on stage was somebody that you've known for years, and
Yeah.
I think most of the audience was people that you've known for years, because it was quite a dedicated audience for Jabba Joe.
Yeah. I would say the audience was probably like a mix of people I knew, and new faces, or people that I may have, I didn't, maybe not have been, too many of my shows, but
yeah, there were a lot of people there. There were a lot of people who, I think, connected with that crowd up there.
for sure, for sure. In fact, we're doing a show. I'm doing a Jason Mraz Foundation show in San Diego in February, and it's working with 8 different organizations. And one of the moms of of one of the kids comes up to me and said, "I saw you last January at the
Yeah.
Java Joe show." I think the key point of what you said is if you're relaxed, your audience is relaxed.
Yeah.
It's like conversation. It's just a conversation like we're having right now. If I was to come on here and we were talking, and I was trying to prove something, or I
Hmm.
was trying to perform for you in a way that I'm trying to elevate myself, so I'm trying to get you to think a certain way about me that I want people to perceive. eh, you
Hmm.
won't even know what the person might not even know what's going on, but they just feel weird.
Hmm.
I'm with the
Hmm.
same people. I'm just up here and I'm comfortable talking.
What was the first record that you bought that really meant something to you?
The the first album that I actually won it. it was a rap album, and it was a Cleveland rapper named MC Chill, and I was about 12 years old, maybe younger. I was at the Sportsman show with my dad, and I had just left the little, I don't know if anybody's ever been to a Sportsman show, but they have a little pond inside, and they would give you a fishing rod with a line and a piece of paper on it, and you would pay $8 and you try to catch a trout. Why you would do this inside a building that you were going to be in all day, catch a trout. So I didn't catch one. And that's so silly. And then I walk out and there's a wheel and they go, hey, spin the wheel. And I spun it and I won an album, and it was MC Chill. And I still know the rap today, but it was just the first song I ever learned off an album, off a record, where I knew songs from theater, and in the summer of when I was in that Kids on Broadway group, we would sing John Prine, Jimmy Buffett, a lot of those old tunes from those guys and gals. But that MC Chill album was the first album I got. I still collect vinyl. I super believe in vinyl. And I think everybody should own a record player. Yeah.
Amen. Well, that was
Sounds
great.
like you came away a better winner than taking home a trout.
For sure.
Yeah.
And when you talk about lyrics, you talk about rhyme. And when you talk about friends, they must be mine. Because when you hear a Def Jam, what you hear is a skill. And who you're hearing right now is MC Chill.
Wow.
Excellent. That's great.
Yeah, I know that.
Wow.
And La Boheme. I learned those at probably the same year.
Yeah, I have to say, I think you're the only person we're ever going to have on the show who can do both of those things.
That's what I'm talking about, Mom.
Exactly, which is why you're so great, right?
I appreciate you both.
Yeah,
This was a lot of fun.
Good.
This is a lot of fun, you guys. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it was went by really quickly.
Sure did. Then before I let you go, is there anything that you'd like to share with the audience, if you want to refer them to places or things or advice?
Yeah, I got a few
words from Billy.
Few things. One, if you're a songwriter in San Diego, I think it is essential for you to watch a movie that just came out, directed and edited by Gregory Page. It's called Midnight Jack. It's the Jack Tempchin movie. It's not a documentary, but it kind of is. But it's philosophy and creativity, and made on zero budget, and it's using all this footage of Jack, and he has this beautiful. I feel like it's essential for songwriters. Go watch this movie.
Oh, great.
Gregory Page is one of my favorite people in the world, and I've been a fan of Jack for over 20 years. I think if it would come to something I could only suggest, is that if you don't know what to do, what do you love to do? And do that. If you love to bake, but give yourself that time to do it, or become a baker. Like, gift yourself in life everything you want to do. You don't have to be great at it. It's not about being good. It's just supposed to happen, right? So just, gift yourself that, because it's a short time we got. And what do you got to lose? So I wish everyone to experience some things in life that bring them joy. I think that's really the meaning of life. The secret to life is everything leads back to joy and happiness. Money leads back to joy and happiness. Shelter leads back to joy and happiness. Everything, relationship, joy and happiness. So just focus on your joy and happiness and skip the dumb stuff.
Skip the dumb stuff. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, Billy, it was really a joy to have you on the show. I'm so glad we were able to work this out. And thank you so much for taking the time, and good luck with everything. Thank you so much for what you do and amusing us and entertaining us.
Thank you so much for having me. We'll see you next time.
On.
Absolutely.